trying to say I'm tongue-tied. Tongue-tied. Whenever you are near me, I'm mummy, 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 mummy. Whenever you're around, whenever you're around, girl.
Hey, this is Dena. Welcome to this little spin-off of my Red Dwarf vlogs kind of mini-series type thing, where I focus on my favorite character, the cat. So for the most part, I'm going to assume that you've seen my Red Dwarf vlogs, or at least familiar with Red Dwarf. But as a very condensed description of it, I'd like to think of it as Star Trek The Next Generation if it had a very small cast, a small budget, and was a British sitcom. To me, that's Red Dwarf in a nutshell. There are 4 main characters who are all great, and I could really do a show like this about any of them. Lovable slacker Dave Lister, who lives on Vindaloo and Lager.
Give me breakfast. Chicken vindaloo and a milkshake.
What flavor milkshake?
Beer.
Neurotic Arnold Judas Rimmer.
And the awful knowledge that throughout your entire life, no one has ever truly liked you because you are so fundamentally unlikable.
Oh, that?
One could have a field day analyzing him. Crichton, the android who gradually gains emotions and learns to be more human. Oh, and he's pretty neurotic too.
Engage panic circuits. Panic circuits engaged.
And then there's the cat, who I feel gets the least amount of love on that show, and maybe that's partly why I chose him for this series. Believe it or not, I actually learned about this character before I learned about the show he comes from. By sheer coincidence, I have an idea for a comic book I've been developing for a long time, where most of the characters are anthropomorphic cats who evolved from present-day big cats. I was talking about this somewhere on the internet years ago. I can't remember the context. Anyway, someone posted a comment along the lines of, "That sounds like Cat from Red Dwarf." So I look up Red Dwarf on Wikipedia, thinking that it sounded a bit familiar, but I didn't really know what it was. I came across this image from Back to Earth and read a little of the info, and I'm all, okay, he wears a fur coat and is really vain or something? Okay, whatever. More than anything, I just thought it was interesting that someone else came up with a similar idea as me. Fast forward a bit and I'm talking about something related to cats on Facebook, maybe something funny Luna did, or maybe I posted a link to one of those Maru videos. Again, I don't remember. And someone responded by posting a link to this clip on YouTube.
I've eaten 5 times, I've slept 6 times, and I've made a lot of things mine. Tomorrow, I'm gonna see if I can have sex with some.
Also look at the number of hits it's gotten. Anyway, my reaction was, that is a cat right there.
Oh, this is mine.
That kind of surprised me because there are a lot of cliches you could cover regarding their love of milk and fish, how they scratch furniture, how they seem all vain and arrogant, but poking fun at a cat's habit of obsessively marking its territory is something I hadn't seen before, and I loved that. And I thought at some point I would have to watch that show. Well, as fate would have it, shortly afterwards my husband started watching Red Dwarf on Netflix, back when it was on Netflix. I stumbled onto bits and pieces of it during that time and soon started watching it myself, and the rest is history. The cat's origins are interesting. In the pilot episode, Lister had a cat named Frankenstein, who he had acquired while on vacation and ended up smuggling onto the ship, which is against the rules. When it was discovered, he had to choose between giving the cat up and letting her be killed and dissected, or going into stasis. He chose the latter. While Lister was in stasis, there was a radiation leak that killed the rest of the Red Dwarf crew. Lister is revived by the ship's computer 3 million years later to find out that Frankenstein had been safely sealed in the hull, where she gave birth to a litter of kittens, where they bred, eventually evolving into humanoid life forms. And here's an interesting fact about cats. A female can give birth to 14 cats in a year. In 5 years' time, there could be a total of 65,536 cats. Just think of how many cats could be born in a span of 3 million years. Taking that into account, along with the fact that they live in an environment that was created by and for humans, it lends a bit of credibility to the idea that cats under those conditions could evolve into humanoids so quickly, or as much credibility as you need for a show that doesn't take itself that seriously. But apparently cats look very much like humans, aside from having a set of canines that are not at all threatening looking on a character who is this goofy. In fact, he's mentioned in the Cute Little Fangs article on TV Tropes. And I love what it says about him. They're the only visible sign that he's not really human. Considering the fact that he's a flighty, ridiculous cat man, they probably qualify as cute. And I agree. There are a couple of interesting differences in the novel Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers, which predates the show. One is that he looked a bit more cat-like in subtle ways. His eyes were a bit bigger, his face flatter, and his ears sat a bit higher on his head, but still human-like, at least at first glance. Also, the book goes into how the cat race suffered many hardships until they discovered the can opener. I think there was a scene where one of them held it up triumphantly like something out of the Bible. Probably the most interesting difference is that Lister and Rimmer actually met Cat while venturing into the section of the ship where the cats had built a city, made of small box-like structures, of course. Easy to imagine how the show wouldn't have the budget for that, at least in season 1, considering they reused the same hallway for most shots and just used a lot of different camera angles to hide that. An entire city that you only see in one scene was not gonna happen. I'm just going to leave it at that for now as far as the differences between the show and the book, though I'll probably mention more as I get up to the respective episodes. Anyway, Cat's behavior changes a bit throughout the series, but mainly he really acts like a cat. Or the way we tend to interpret cat behavior anyway. Vain, selfish, energetic, etc. And naturally, it's played for laughs. Speaking of which, that's a big part of what I love about this character. Cats are walking contradictions. They are both graceful and clumsy, badass and silly, smart and stupid, beautiful and goofy, and Cat has all of those qualities. The cat is funny. A lot of the humor obviously comes from how silly it looks for a human to do cat-like things, but they can be surprisingly subtle about it at times. Plus, a lot of the humor just comes from the fact that he's basically the dumb one, not to mention the vain one. But to me, Cat's also adorable. Say what you will about how ridiculous it is to wear vinyl and sequins for piloting a spaceship, but however inappropriate they may be, Cat's outfits do flatter him.
Thank you.
Add the fact that the actor who plays him is already easy on the eyes, but then when you add the nice clothes and hair and such, well, ZZ Top put it best. I just totally fell in love with this character. At first it was just finding him all funny and cute with all the cat-like things he does and how well it's all handled. And now it's just blown up into full-on fangirlism. Hell, I've even cosplayed as him. Not to mention I've done, like, all of the fan art. Don't judge me. The cat is played by john-jules, who has a background in singing and dancing, which makes a lot of sense for this sort of character. I'd never heard of him before I started watching Red Dwarf, but it turned out that he'd been in some things I'd seen before. I just didn't know who he was at the time. Like I mentioned when I covered Labyrinth, he was one of the Fireys.
Like the man said, don't lose your head.
He was one of the dancers in The Great Muppet Caper, though it's very blink and you'll miss it. And, okay, you know how in Little Shop of Horrors there's a trio of female singers? But during that bit in the flashback right before the total eclipse, there's a group of male singers who just appear for this one bit and are never seen again. Notice how the one closest to Rick Moranis looks like the cat? Also notice that he's the one singing baritone here, so he's got some range. It's kind of interesting that all three of those things involve Jim Henson's workshop in some way. I guess they just really liked him and had him keep coming back whenever they needed a singer or dancer in one of their movies. Other than that, he was in Blade 2.
My name is Assad.
Believe it or not, I hadn't seen any of the Blade movies, but I always meant to, so I went ahead and watched just Blade 2 as research for this. I actually enjoyed the hell out of it for the most part. There's a twist at the end that I thought was kinda dumb, but for an over-the-top action movie with some really effective horror elements, it's a ton of fun.
Ooh, so exciting.
Danny's role isn't that big, but it's bigger than I expected.
You've got to understand, these things are like crack addicts. They need to feed daily.
Though honestly, he doesn't get to show off his talents that much in this movie. I was hoping he'd have more physical things to do and maybe show off his dancing background, but mostly he just talks and waves a big gun around. I mean, I know there's this part, but this could be a stunt person for all we can tell. But he has a great presence either way. He can play a serious vampire as well as a goofy cat person. Either way, I like to imagine someone going, okay, we're gonna need you to wear tight leather and a pair of fangs. Can you do that? And he went, bitch please. I know he's been in other things, but as I've said before, I don't really watch much British television, so this is about it as far as what I've seen. Fun fact, he auditioned for the cat while wearing his dad's zoot suit.
First lines were, ow, ooh, ee-ah, ooh, how am I looking?
Oh, ooh, wee, how am I looking?
But there's no one else there. Who's he talking to?
The famous pink suit that we first see Cat wearing is modeled after it, by the way. And he showed up half an hour late on accident, but they didn't know that and thought he just showed up late because he didn't care. Ironically, that made a great first impression because it perfectly set the tone for the character he was auditioning for. Also, he did his homework. He read a book called Cat Watching in preparation for the role. I also got a copy of it, partly in preparation for this video, but I also just wanted to see what sorts of things he picked up from it. Honestly, I don't know how much of what he does comes from the script and how much he improvises, but he ends up doing a lot of cat-like things, some of which are kind of subtle. I'm never able to notice it myself while watching, but I've heard that he tries not to blink because cats tend to not blink very often. Seriously, don't even try getting into a staring contest with a cat, you will lose. He also does an American accent for the character, a bit southern, like a blues singer.
Why, sure I do, grease stain.
He does it really well, too. If I hadn't heard him in interviews and such, I don't think I'd be able to tell he was British. I only recall noticing his accent slip once.
I'm sure I have a window in my schedule somewhere.
So outtakes are hilarious. Speaking of outtakes, a lot of Danny seem to involve him forgetting his line.
Some naughty ducks got turned into some,
And if you see enough of these, it's like, oh, Danny forgot his line again. But considering that he's trying to remember his lines while also focusing on doing an accent and trying not to blink, while trying to talk around a pair of fake fangs, trust me, that can be a pain. Not to mention that half the time he's probably wearing uncomfortable clothes, and how the creators are notorious for doing last-minute rewrites, I'd say it's definitely forgivable.
I understand the concept.
Do you understand the meaning?
No, I don't understand that.
But it's still funny having him be in character one moment and then suddenly going, oh, bollocks.
That's going to be shown forever, I promise you.
But honestly, I love that we have this character. He's gimmicky, he doesn't have a lot of depth, and his character isn't really explored in a serious way, and yet the actor who plays him puts so much effort into getting him down just right. I genuinely admire that. I am a proponent of the idea that if you're going to do something, do it right. Go big or go home.
There's an old cat proverb. It's better to live 1 hour as a tiger than a whole lifetime as a worm.
I'll tell you what, though. I wish I was familiar with Red Dwarf back when I covered Catwoman in Name Only, or Sino as I like to call it, because it would have been great contrasting Sino with the cat. Of course, Sino is meant to be a more serious take on the idea, but there were some failed attempts at cat-related comedy thrown in, and similar things did work on Red Dwarf about 20 years earlier. Well, no time like the present. The fish thing. Because cats like fish, therefore seeing a cat person eat a lot of fish is funny. It's done twice. The first time is unfunny, second time is cringe-inducing. Not to be a stick in the mud, but really this concept is just not funny to me. I've actually had a lot of cats who would turn their noses up at fish, but would enthusiastically devour anything made with chicken in a heartbeat. So to me it comes across as a lame stereotype perpetuated by people who learned all they know of cats from cartoons. So I just kind of roll my eyes when the idea of cats liking fish is the basis of comedy. And yet, Red Dwarf has done this a few times and made it work. This is a fairly famous scene where Rimmer has bribed Cat by teaching him how to use the vending machine.
Fish! Today's fish is trout a la creme. Enjoy your meal.
Fish!
And sure, part of the joke is that he loves fish because he's a cat, but most of what makes this work is comedic timing.
Enjoy your meal.
I will.
And then there's the aftermath with some randomly silly dialogue.
Oh, I'm gonna die. I've been fished to death.
Again, fish is part of the joke, but not the focus of it.
Look out! Food escape!
Simply having someone stuff their face with fish and that being the whole joke is not funny. Another thing that the cat has over Sino, and I realize this is subjective, is that despite being mean-spirited and self-centered, he still manages to be likable. I think it's because he's so simple-minded and downright childlike that any kind of introspection is totally beyond his mental capacity. I guess what I'm getting at is that it's not his fault in a way. He doesn't know any better. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of cases where Cat's indifference makes me cringe a little, like in Backwards where he tells Lister right to his face that he doesn't care about him.
Don't you care about anyone but yourself? Hell no, I don't even care about you.
Ouch. And also this bit from Better Than Life.
I'm so hungry, I just have to eat. Rimmer's dad's died. I prefer chicken.
But usually when he's an asshole, he's just so childlike and cute about it that I just can't be too mad at him. Not to mention that sometimes it will catch up with him and it's always hilarious. Sino, on the other hand, well, she comes across as stupid, but it's only due to bad writing. We're supposed to see her as this poor, kind soul who has perpetually gotten the short end of the stick, but now karma has awarded her with the apparent right to give the world the middle finger, like robbing a museum and unapologetically abusing this guy and stealing his car, despite his concern over nearly running over her, which was her fault, by the way, since she literally dropped out of the sky in front of his car. There is nothing cute or endearing about this character. It's just mean-spirited and leaves me hoping that it will eventually catch up with her. And of course it doesn't. Also, it tickles me that this effect from a low-budget TV show is more convincing than this effect from a blockbuster Hollywood movie. So yeah, the cat dances circles around Sino. Big surprise. So I'm just gonna wrap up this video and call it my intro to the cat. And I will have 1 or 2 more episodes where I'll go into how he changes throughout the series, specific things he does in various episodes, and of course his wardrobe from seasons 1 through 5, and I'll give some more specific thoughts on the 2 versions of the cat who are in Red Dwarf USA. See you then!
When I saw you for the first time, my knees began to quiver, and I got a funny feeling in my kidneys and my liver. Digestive system, baby. My hands, they started shaking, my heart began to thumping, my breakfast left my body.
This is Dena. Welcome to this little mini-series type thing. Shit. Welcome to this little spin-off of my Red Dwarf vlogs kind of mini-series type thing. God, why did I write it like that?